Welcome to Aviation Aftermath. On July 17, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 took off from Amsterdam, heading for Kuala Lumpur. It was a routine summer flight, filled with families on vacation, tourists starting an adventure, and a dedicated crew. But just hours into its journey, high above the fields of eastern Ukraine, the Boeing 777 vanished from radar. On the ground, a scene of absolute horror unfolded as wreckage rained down from the sky. All 298 souls on board were lost. The cause wasn't a storm. It wasn't a mechanical failure. It was a missile. This is the story of MH17. Flight MH17 was a scheduled passenger service, departing Amsterdam Schiphol Airport just after midday. The aircraft, a reliable Boeing 777-200ER, carried people from all over the world: the Netherlands, Malaysia, Australia, Indonesia, the UK, and more. Their flight plan was a standard route across Europe, one that would take them over Ukraine on their way to Southeast Asia. At the time, fierce conflict was raging in eastern Ukraine. In early 2014, the region had descended into war between Ukrainian government forces and Russian-backed separatist groups. The fighting in the Donbass region was intense, with both sides using heavy weaponry, including sophisticated anti-aircraft missile systems. In the months before the MH17 tragedy, several Ukrainian military aircraft had been shot down over the conflict zone. Despite this, the airspace above 30,000 feet was still considered safe for international flights. The book SA-11 Gadfly Surface-to-Air missile system is the weapon that investigators concluded shot down Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17. But what the airlines didn't account for were the much larger, more powerful systems lurking below. At 1:19 p.m. UTC, as MH17 cruised peacefully at 33,000 feet, it was struck by a surface-to-air missile. The missile was later identified as part of a Buk Sistema Mobile, radar-guided launcher capable of destroying high-altitude targets. The warhead exploded just outside the cockpit, sending a deadly wave of shrapnel tearing through the front of the aircraft. The catastrophic damage caused the Boeing 777 to break apart in midair almost instantly. Debris was scattered across miles of farmland near the village of Harabov. All 298 passengers and crew were killed in what became the deadliest shoot-down of a civilian airliner in modern history. The news of the disaster sent shockwaves around the globe. Within hours, harrowing images of the crash site filled television screens and news feeds. Personal belongings, passports, and fragments of the plane were strewn across the Ukrainian countryside. The world watched in horror. The vast majority of the victims, 193 people, were Dutch citizens, turning a distant conflict into a national tragedy for the Netherlands. Memorials sprang up around the world as profound grief quickly turned into outrage. Governments demanded to know how this could happen. Who would shoot down a passenger jet? International investigation was immediately launched, led by the Dutch Safety Board and a Joint Investigation Team, or JIT. The team faced immense challenges. The crash site was in an active war zone, making it incredibly difficult and dangerous to access and collect evidence. But despite the obstacles, the truth began to emerge. Investigators painstakingly pieced together radar data, satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and forensic analysis of the wreckage. Their findings all pointed to one conclusion: MH17 was shot down by a Russian-built Buk missile system. The JIT determined that the launcher had been transported from Russia into separatist-controlled territory in eastern Ukraine on the day of the shootdown. Crucially, they tracked its journey back across the border into Russia shortly after the attack. Fragments of the specific type of Buk missile were even found embedded in the aircraft's wreckage and in the bodies of the cockpit. Russia has consistently denied any involvement, offering alternative theories that have been dismissed by the international investigators. In the years that followed, the quest for justice continued. In 2022, a Dutch court delivered its long-awaited verdict. 3 men, 2 Russians, and 1 Ukrainian with ties to the separatist forces were convicted in absentia for their roles in downing the plane and for the murder of all 298 people on board. A 4th man was acquitted. For the families of the victims, the verdict provided a measure of accountability, a legal confirmation of who was responsible. But no court ruling could ever bring back their loved ones or erase the years of pain. The broader question of political responsibility at the highest levels remains a source of major international tension to this day. The tragedy of MH17 served as a brutal wake-up call for the entire aviation industry. It forced a fundamental rethinking of how airlines assess the risks of flying over conflict zones. Regulations were tightened, and states and aviation authorities now provide much stronger guidance on avoiding potentially hostile airspace. The tools used for risk assessment, including satellite tracking and intelligence sharing, have become far more sophisticated. But even with these changes, the downing of Flight MH17 remains a chilling reminder of the vulnerability of civilian aviation in a world of complex. 298 innocent lives were lost, caught in the crossfire of a war they had nothing to do with. The story of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 is a tragic tale of war, miscalculation, and devastating loss. It's a story that must never be forgotten. This was the story of Flight MH17 here on Aviation Aftermath. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like and subscribe, and join me next time as we explore the lessons learned from aviation's darkest hours.